to here. So, whoa, there we go. You can control the volume, whatever. Whoa, that's good and loud. We're going to take these two pieces of raw wood and turn them into this in an hour and a half, or less if I'm lucky. Okay. Now, a sheet that just has all the steps on it that I can, I don't have enough, I'm not sure how many would be here, so you can kind of pass this around and take one. I think you're going to put it in your newsletter, so if you don't get one, it'll be in a newsletter. We can also keep track of the steps so that we can see if I'm covering everything as I go. I miss something. So, and I'm good for questions as we go. The other piece, well, I got. Okay. Go for it. And are we good to go? I don't know. I got the green light. Yeah, that sounds okay. How many put burn marks on their bowls and stuff? Nobody. Hardly anybody. Have you put burn marks on a curved surface? Kind of hard to hold the wire on the curved surface of a bowl, isn't it? Yeah. The solution is right here in my hand. A piece of very thin Formica, VT. And it does a great job. You can just bend this as you choose on the groove that you make. Bend that slightly and you can put a burn mark in there very nicely. You can use the whole piece or you can use just the corners, whatever you want. Whoa. I brought a couple extra pieces, so if you're interested in those, you can pick them up later. Boy, I'm getting, do I have this mic in the wrong place? To save some time, but what we're going to do is put a tenon on this sucker first. I cut the center marks on both sides and we'll place it on center. And no matter how close you are to the center, you're almost always going to have it not be true. So I set it and I re-center. And with the cup center on here, you can end up doing that. Nope, it's really, really close. That's so good. Now we'll put her down. The stop on this, that's okay. No, yeah, just for a minute. So I can just lock her for a minute and I'll.
Your tail stalks in the back when you take that down there.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir. I knew you'd be helpful for something. I like to pick on Frank too. Of course, I'm an equal opportunity harasser, so I can harass people very well. Now once this is balanced, and we'll have to balance it when we turn it around, first thing I'm going to do is cut a tenon on this side so that we can mount it in a chuck on the other side. It's not going to go very fast yet. Wait till later. Okay. Yeah, the speed comes up as we go. And this is going to be like a 2-inch tenon on there. Right, Frank? Good. Okay. In doing this, I always wear face shield. And I don't know whether you've noticed my booties or not, but this makes the wife happy. No shavings in the shoes. And my famous, I think this is my 4th pair of Harbor Freight fingerless gloves. And I have always tapped that one on, but I leave this one as an early warning system. If I get too close, this starts to flap and that tells me to slow down. Okay? So now we'll see if I can get the speed control here for that, according to that, is 800. It's the outside ring, right, Frank? Yeah. The outside ring. I'm using a one-way chuck, so the sides of the tenon can be straight, and that ought to do the trick. Whoops, almost hit the emergency stop. Don't do that, right, Frank? Right, don't do that. Screws up the... Okay, that takes care of our tenon. And the push rod. Knockout bar. I'm sorry I didn't ask for that earlier. I think he's a friend. We'll use one of his gouges.
You know, I think that was one of the things that
That's not there.
was in the other box.
Oh, how about that screwdriver?
Yeah, that might
Was that long enough?
No.
Not long enough.
No. But,
Oh, yeah, wow.
let me try this.
Oh, just,
Grab these feet.
I should have asked you about this in the beginning. I really sunk that thing in there, which didn't help any, did it?
Okay.
Well, we're going to have to sacrifice,
Well, we can
not that one.
We can resharpen it.
Okay, here we go. That's not long enough.
Not long enough?
Nope.
Well, wait a minute, let's put a rod in behind it.
Do you have a pair of pliers?
Nope,
Channel locks?
nope.
I just think we could lock it and take it out with a pair of pliers.
How about, Mark, how much too short was it? In other words, if we do this,
Will that go all the way in?
it'll go all the way in, yeah. Then you'll be able to, and it's got a cushion down there.
Aha. We had that baby in there, didn't we?
Sorry about that.
Put a little dent in your end of your piece. Well, it didn't damage the tool, though.
Well,
So we're in good shape. Okay. One of the things you'll need to consider when doing this is what chucks you have available. You're going to need a compression chuck that will be used on, is this the best place to put these? Close. You'll need a compression chuck for the backside, for this tenon. Then when we make the box on the other side, you'll need an expansion chuck, and you'll need to have it small enough. This is a 1-inch minimum expansion, so that we make the other one, it'll expand into the piece for the other side. So you can either change the jaws or, oh wait, I got it. You don't have a hand wheel on that, do you? He doesn't like hand wheels? You don't like hand wheels? Okay, I guess that's why there's not one on here then.
and usually there's a vacuum chuck on here.
Oh, okay. All right. The reason the green tape is on there, I take a bunch of my stuff to the class at the Art Center, and I mark everything with green tape so that, wow, cool. Every once in a while you get lucky. That'll make up for the now it's anchored. Now you can hold up your, okay. We're going to do the top first. We'll do the top, make the box, make the lid, then reverse it and take off the bottom, make the bottom part of the wing, and then take off the tenon, the last part. Now, this is where you need the speed, because we're cutting a lot of air on there. So, that's 1600. We'll see how it goes. I use two different gouges when I do this. One is a regular fingernail grind, and I can do some of the rough work with that, but I've found that the straight 45-degree grind does really well in the finishing cuts. You know, just one more cut. That's what we'll do with the one more cut. So I save those, and I have several of those so that I have them available so I don't have to take time to sharpen. So I'll start by making the, we'll start the wing, and I didn't mention at the beginning that the sides of your piece, both sides and the ends, need to be finished. Nice clean cuts on the sides and the ends, because you won't be able to do much except hand sand when you're finished. So that's what we're going to end up. So we're going to start the process of taking her down. I'm going to come back. I can hear you probably won't be able to hear it back there, but I've got the bevel on the wood, and I'll back up until it stops. I'm taking off about a 1/16 of an inch at a cut. And it's not as important on this side as it is on the other side, but I'll cut down maybe about 2 inches, and I'll go ahead and get down to where I want to finish that thickness on there. And then, but the back side is where you have to gauge the thickness very, very carefully. And as Frank noted on that piece that's coming around that maple one, he was concerned about the thickness when he judged that at the state fair. So we will try and do better this time, Frank. Okay? Okay. So the other thing that I do, you'll hear, I don't know whether you can catch this on the video or not. I come back, I put it on here, and come back till I don't hear anything. And then I just go out just a tiny bit when the noise stops, the vibration stops from being on the bevel, and then I just start in with a series of cuts. That's about all that's going to happen for the next few minutes. I'm making sure that my tool is anchored to my body, and I'm just closing and opening my left hand to control the movement of the cut, keeping my thumb on the back of the tool. And you notice on those pieces coming around, that big one, the big wide one, there's one little nick on one of the corners. But if you don't use a hard wood, you're not going to get much in the way of good looking corners. That wouldn't go well either, would it, Frank? That's some more better. We're at about 1900. Still got a ways to go. But it's also chipping out too. When I change the cut, you'll see how it's a little bit different than that. Ships are flying. We're about, I'm going to go down to about another 1/4 inch and then we'll, so I'm not going to do a really thin thing like Rudy does, because in this kind of a wing it won't stand up very well. But you can go down really thin like Rudy does on his bowls. That ought to be about it. Nope. One more cut, 2 more cuts. 3, 4. Boy, that one side is really chipping out. Now I'm going to take that 45 angle and do a little bit and see if we can soften her up a little bit. And this is one time where you follow not the rules of some of the professional turners, where the rules say only move the tool rest when you're stopped. Doing this project is definitely, you want to stop the piece before you move the tool rest. Went too far into the heavy stuff, but I got the final cut that I needed down here. And you can probably start sanding that with about 320 or 400. Okay. Now we're going to go down about that far. We'll make the dome. And what I like to do on the dome is cut it so that the dome is not at the edge, but in just slightly from the edge. So the dome will set that way. So that's our next challenge to take off, and we'll go down to make the dome in the middle. This glove also protects, because those shavings are hot coming off there. Okay, I'll go just a little bit more so that we're inside the edge of that. I slowed down the feed to see if we can slow down the chipping. Yeah, it slowed down the chipping. It's kind of hard to see the profile when that thing's spinning. Maybe I got a lousy piece of hard maple. That should take the finish cut up to there. I'm going to give this to either Frank or Jim or somebody, and I'm not going to sand these wings. You need to sand the wings. I use an orbital sander to, a 5-inch regular orbital sander to sand the wings, because it's kind of hard to sand that when it's spinning that fast, and probably not very safe. Somebody want to try it? Okay. That should put the finish cut up to there. Now we got to finish the dome. Kind of have to just put my tool here to see where I start up each time, because of the profile's not easily. Well, it would have to be black paper because this is white. Got a really nasty tear out on that edge right there. Never had that happen before. One more cut. Okay, we're gonna stop. That's a little, I got a little rough spot there, but that'll sand out. But that tear out on that side, see this side's really good. Oh well. I got one more little. Okay. Now, you know, Dennis, I never even looked down there. I may try it again when we do the backside. Okay. Next, we're going to do a little box on here. And I discovered that this is a number 3 taper. So one of the guys here went and got the adapter for me. And I'm going to cheat and cut it. Now we're going to go way down low. We'll do about 400. It's plenty fast enough. What do you think also is a good idea to do? Measure? Why would we do that? You don't want to. Yep. And we'll do that. My pencil disappeared. Because I threw it back in the box. There is the very bottom, which is 2 3/4. We're going to go down, let's go down 1 1/4 for the bottom. And just for the heck of it, we're going to mark 1 1/4 on here. Fair enough? Okay. There we go. Now we're going to make the top for the lid, and this has got to be a little more than 1 inch, because we're going to use the expansion chuck on this one, and we'll have to have a hole that will match probably like 1 1/16 or 1 1/8, something like that on there. And we'll that ought to do the trick. And we can go slower this time. I'm using a box cutter. And since I'm using a Novichok, I got to put a bit of a dovetail in there. And make sure we've got a nice flat. There's nothing better than a good tenon. Students don't believe me that, but then when a piece comes loose that I haven't checked, typically they don't have it flat on the bottom, or they don't have it right for the dovetail or whatever they're doing. So let's see what we've got. I didn't bring my gauge. Got a little over 1 inch. We're going to go just a whisker more. We're set on top lids. You can also make the insert lid that you put in and then turn and shape the whole piece. But since I'm using a contrasting wood, that shaped insert lid doesn't have as much meaning as if you were using, like making a regular box and having the top have it really looks nice that way when you can put the lid in and then shape the top to it. It makes a really nice piece. I also brought my portable air compressor, and I happened to put a piece of tape on the right end so that we can use the right piece. And what I'm going to do now, I'm not going to do a lot of fancy hollowing because I've found that people don't get too excited about watching somebody hollow a piece. Can't see too much. So I'm going to do a little bit of hollowing to make it look like a box, but won't do a lot. And I'll take that little dimple off the bottom of the bottom. Dimple's still there. Gone. Okay. I'm going to flatten that off just a whisker, and then we'll make a box lid for that. Okay. You can do, the piece I had, I'd make little, fancy marks in the bottom of the piece and so on. You can get real fancy at doing that. But I think the idea is to go through the process for doing this rather than all the real elaborate, I forgot how you lock this, Frank. Push it in or pull out. Frank disappeared. Oh, there we go. Ha-ha. And natural, oh, there it goes. Instead of taking that out of the chuck, I'm going to, because I need to size the lid, I'm going to use another chuck. That one had to have 1.8 inches in it, so I'm staying away from my work this way. I pre-did the piece of mahogany. Probably better to turn this, unlock this before we turn on the juice. Frank would probably appreciate that on his belts. And the piece we're going to make is going to have a insert of 1 1/16. The other thing I'm going to verify too is that, ta-da, It worked. We'll do it the easy way. Frank couldn't come up next month to do the demo for Tri-County, so Dennis, my buddy, conned me into doing the demo. And he's here tonight to check it out and see if it's worth my doing the demo. Is that right? This is my practice version. Well, I practiced last month at the How group. So I need lots of practice? Okay. All right. So we'll do that. Now we'll see how close I come. Still too big, which is good. This is the boring part of the demo. Well, I thought I had that down further than that. One more cut. Ta-da! I'm making this a fairly square top so that it'll fit not real snug. That looks like we're pretty good. Okay, now we can take that off. And naturally, I needed the other piece to come off too. Oh, nuts. You got a big wrench? Well, I could put the, this is 1.25 inches, this is 1.8 inches. Huh? Yeah. Do you have a? You need to stay close, Frank.
I don't think I have that. I can look. No, we don't have ranks that big.
Okay. Well,
Sorry.
I guess
Anybody here have a strong grip?
Have a wrench in the truck. Give it a tap.
what you got?
Yeah, it's gonna go get a wrench out of the truck.
Oh, Dennis.
Never mind.
Dennis.
Never mind.
Old Muscle Man did it. I didn't think I had that on that tight. Now we're going to go back up. Whoop. Release the lock. Check the spin. And we're ready to go. Now we shape a fairly small finial on this. Don't want to be here all night, do we? It's nice to stay away from that wing. That's my excuse anyway. Pretty good excuse? I keep reaching for the hand wheel that isn't there. Okay. Got to do one more cut there to make it look good.
This is a slow cut. Take off some little burrs that are down in there. Now, I said I wasn't going to do any sanding, but I lied for a minute. I'm going to do just a whisker sand on that top piece, and we'll slow the dude down a little bit. You're supposed to sand at what? That's not a rhetorical question. I want an answer. Speed for sanding. Okay. And the reason for that is what? Don't burn up the paper. Particularly when you're doing high grits. You'll just fill up the Okay. Now, parting is such sweet sorrow. And that's a little too slow. That's probably about as close as we're going to get. That's about a 32nd of an inch. Wow. That's not good. Okay. That's almost a popper. Okay, lid done. And now the fun begins, right? Came off. And if I can't get that off, Frank will have to bring the chuck to the next meeting. Okay, make sure it's nice and seated and lefty-tighty, righty-loosey. I tell people that the reason that that's that way is these are made in Australia, which is south of the equator. Is that right? Now we're going to bring up the tailstock again, and I saved the lucking out. It should align very well. Oh man. Happy camper. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do this time, you're going to not take a chance this time? Okay. Take a shot. I know that was a good excuse. We're going to rev her back up again and go for taking it off with the same pattern that I did before. But the thing you have to be careful of this time, because of the thickness, we're only going to go down about 2 inches. Then I'm going to put the finish cut on it. Then I'll go another 2 inches so that we have the bulk to support our piece. So we don't want to, because once you go past that point, you don't go back. We're going to finish it as much as we can. And it's amazing, so far, we have this rip out on this one side. It disappoints me to no end. This side's perfect, but we've got good corners so far. The test is going to be now, right? Okay, so we're ready to give her another shot. This doesn't have to be super tight. It's hard maple, but whenever you're expanding, you've got to be careful not to get it too tight. I'm not sure you could split that. I suppose you could split it with a lot of muscle. So we're going to crank her back up again and let her rip. Same thing, I'm going to use my fingernail gouge. I'm pretty close to the thickness I want, so I don't want to take too much off. Yeah, we're good. Okay. That looks pretty good. So we'll take on to the next couple inches. Dennis, let's try that again. Let's try your book again. You can just rip off the cover if you want. And we'll see how that works. It is better. I don't need to use my 45. I got a good smooth cut right away. So, continuing on. You got to keep stopping to be sure your thickness is right. Get a little bit thick there. The poplar and birch, or poplar and maple that I have back there in the raffle, if you're interested in doing one of these, you could take the poplar and maybe start with a 6-inch one instead of a full 12-inch. So you can hone up you'll probably get some crack. There's also 2 pieces of maple back there. I cannot guarantee they're hard maple. I've been working for the past 4 or 5 years with the toy makers of Eastlake, which makes about 16,000 toys a year. And I spray painted all the wheels. That's a lot of flipping wheels. But they also get these pieces of wood from the various mills around the Tampa area, and they can't use the 2x2 stuff, so the guy lets me know that they're there, and I go over and pick them up, take them over to the studio, and I got lots of poplar and maple and some mahogany for people to practice beads and coves, beads and coves. First thing you do, right, for a beginner? So anyway, I was letting that cool down a little bit. We're getting kind of hot. So onward and upward, or downward, inward. Now, I was on that lidded box that's back there. If you want to, one of the things you can do with a piece that's suspended like this is to make it so that the curve on the top continues with the curve on the bottom. You can make that more pronounced if you make this edge real sharp. I didn't make this sharp because I wanted to leave it so you could sand it real easy with the orbital sander. But if you want to do it so that you can make that curve continue through the piece, you can do that. We're going to go about right there. Should do the trick. And we're a little bit thick. Still too thick. This one has a little bit of a wave in it, but you can make these, the big piece I had, the one that's 3.5 inches wide with a finial on both sides, is, it was set up so that it had a wave in it. So it starts, one curve, it has a curve, it's not complete ogee, but it's a 2-piece curve on there. We're going to need to take that on in to take out the side. Okay. And we marked the bottom right there, so we're still in good shape. But I want to continue on in, so I break this surface. So I got to go in a little bit more to break that. And we'll begin to take off some of the tenon. That should break the surface. Nope. In all of this, I keep my elbow in and tool anchored on the body, so I have good tool control. There we go. Now we'll go into make it. I've got a 1/4 inch grind that's got a 45 on it that I like to use to go down in here in this close stuff. Again, I'm making this a little more round so that it's easier to sand for whoever wins the sanding award. Our thickness is good, I just have to go a little bit further. That should come pretty dang close to it. Nope. I think I'm going to stop there because we're right close at the time. The thickness is not exactly precise there, but we've got that real tear on the other side. So now we'll want to take off the rest of the tenon. I want to take off as much of the tenon as I can before pulling back the tailstock, for obvious reasons. We're going to be sure that that's nice and tight. And we can slow her down now because we're not doing the wings. And you can have back your book, Dennis. Thank you. I can sand that just a wee bit. We'll add a little decoration on this one. I didn't bring my spiraling tool, so we'll use the old-fashioned 3 rings. Sand off the spurs. And the lid is here somewhere. Ta-da! Okay, except for that one tear out on that side. Corners all came out good. So, who's going to sand it for the Christmas? Uncle Frank? Okay. Okay, any questions? Those of you that looked at the guidelines, did I miss any of the steps or screw it up? You got a good...
Mark, thank you so much.
Sure enough. Okay. Oh, you're going to do your... Oh, on the... I think I mentioned already, but on the raffle wood I brought back there is a piece of monkey pod. Some of you can turn monkey pod, some can't. It's a crotch piece. The other piece is Drake elm. That was a tree that was cut down in probably July of last year. The monkey pod was cut down in June of last year. It still has some moisture in it, but it's reasonably dry. But I turned a piece of it. I'm allergic to it. I can cut it green with no problem whatsoever. I helped Paula mill it with a big saw with a Lucas mill, no problem at all. But when it starts to dry out, look out, baby. So I guess you're going to, so if you want the pieces of poplar back there, those of you who want to try your hand at doing this, do you have a challenge for the next month or something like that? Somebody going to make one for the, you don't do a challenge? Okay. Some clubs do, some don't. Okay. I'll go ahead and tear this down, and I guess you're going to do the raffle.
Art, thank you so much for coming. We appreciate that
Sure enough.
greatly.
You can turn on it.
For those of you who don't know,